Hello, this video is about the Airfix Girder bridge, which is a model kit made in 1959, and its uses by the Gerry Anderson special effects team on TV shows like Thunderbirds. Most people living in the UK are very familiar with Thunderbirds or Lady Penelope or Thunderbird 2, all things that are recognizable. But for those who don't know, here's a little summary. Thunderbirds was the fourth science fiction adventure series made by Gerry Anderson and his team, preceded by Supercar, Fireball XO5, and Stingray. Thunderbirds had a scope way beyond any of those other prior series. Each episode was 50 minutes long compared to the 25 minutes of the other shows, and featured situations all over the world, featuring all manner of futuristic vehicles and locations and exciting situations. And the action revolved around a race against time to save people who were in danger, usually through no fault of their own. Every week, there would be a new location, a new situation, a family trapped in the basement of a burning building, an atomic power station is sabotaged, an airliner crash lands on the sea and sinks to the seabed, and they have to go down in a submarine to get the people out. And sort of every week, there could be anything could happen. So the show was chock full of imagination and just really cool stuff, much like all the Anderson shows. But Thunderbirds particularly excited people in a way that very few shows have, in a way. 60 years later, people are still talking about it. And I think part of that is because of the level of craftsmanship that was going on with the show. Anyway, so the special effects team under Derek Meddings had to create, new sets and new models each week. All of these had to look believable and typically had to be damaged or destroyed during the course of the story. The show was one of the most expensive being produced at the time, but it's still, it's a TV show. It had a demanding schedule. I think they had between 5 and 7 days to shoot the effects, and another sort of 5 to 10 days to shoot the puppet stuff per episode, and obviously time before that to build and design everything. Huge amount of work. And one of the things that they did, the visual effects team developed a technique where they would use commercially available model kits, which were kind of ransacked for cool looking details. So you may get a model tank and you may like the turret. You may use the turret piece, throw away the rest of it, or take some of the wheels and throw away the rest of it, and then glue those onto models to just add some of that sort of real world functionality and credibility to these things. And there were just so many models in this show, so many different vehicles, so many different versions of those vehicles had to be created for the different shots. I mean, it's huge undertaking. This technique is known as kit bashing, and one of the kits in particular that became very popular with the model makers was the Airfix Girder bridge. Just a sidetrack just for a second. So even watching Thunderbirds as a kid, I remember the episode with the Red Arrow fighter plane, which was a sort of customized Saab Draken, which is just a great looking plane that was around at the time, and there were several kits available. And even as a young kid, I'm like, hey, that's a Saab Draken, the Red Arrow. So I was kind of aware that using commercially available kits was something that kind of like occurred in the show, but I didn't really know much beyond that. One thing that sort of intrigued me was Thunderbird 2's pods. Surrounding the door, there's 4 sort of grey, sockets, locks. Anyway, these sort of square things sort of around the pod, and 6 pods, and so okay, those were probably something. If they were dealing with model kits at all, maybe that was something off a model kit. I wonder what that is. And it just sort of bugged me for a while. And cut to one day, this is like late 70s, probably early 80s. I was in a local model shop called Jennings, classic sort of model hobby shop, kits of all eras stacked floor to ceiling, sort of teetering in from above, and rotatable displays with bags hanging on it, and just you could really sort of find some gems in there, as well as new stuff and paintbrushes and stuff. Sadly missed. Anyway, I was in there one day, and then I just sort of caught out of the corner of my eye this bag kit hanging up, like the old Airfix kits, and through the bag you could see all the kit parts, and one of the kit parts I could see was something that looked very much like those square socket things on the front of the pods. And I was like, and I looked closer and closer, and in the movie version of this, everything goes into slow motion, and I'm like, oh my god, that's it. So anyway, I bought it, raced home on my bike, got home and instantly sort of pulled out my TB21 annuals and the Thunderbirds annual, looking for these pictures and kind of comparing it. I'm like, yeah, I think that's it. And identify, yes, indeed, this kit part was that thing that was used on the front of the pods. And I was like, oh, wow, so now that Thunderbird 2 model, we could then work out, roughly like how big it was and all the rest of it. And it was just like, oh, it was so exciting. You have no idea. It was the holy grail, neck and neck with discovering what the Caterpillar tracks used on all the vehicles were, and that's another video. So this thing, which turns out to be the Airfix Girder Bridge kit number 207, was where these things came from. And then I started just looking at the other parts, because there's a lot of parts in this thing. It's a full sort of trestle bridge, I think, for like HO scale trains. And sort of started looking at these parts and like, those the trestle kind of bit kind of looked like all the stuff, all these gantries and girder work up in the top of Thunderbird 2's hangar. Oh, these flat bits kind of look like stuff on the walls in the hangar and on the door that opens down to make the runway flush so Thunderbird 2 can taxi out. Hey, and those things look like the same things on the wall in Thunderbird 1's hangar. And hey, look, there's some of those same square things on the outside of Virgil's chute down to Thunderbird 2 in the hangar. Oh, and look, and when Thunderbird 1 comes to rest before it blasts off, there's triangular pieces, and they're the end of the thing. And then, hey, look, even on Thunderbird 5, on the docking area where Thunderbird 3 comes into dock, there's those same triangular pieces used. They're on the Thunderbird 1 launch area. And in Thunderbird 3's launch area, those big sort of cylindrical, whatever those things are, exhaust, stands. There's more of those sort of triangular pieces there. So this thing was sort of being used everywhere. And once you sort of knew what the parts were and knew this was something they were doing, you could kind of start looking for it everywhere. And indeed, it was used a lot. So outside of those things, a great example is the Mole, the famous underground rescue machine, where the whole trolley section basically is the girder bridge. If you look at that sort of trapezoid shape, that is a whole side of the girder bridge. And I think on the flat part of it, where it raises up, is some of the road surface, if you want to call it that, the base piece. It even has a couple of the square socket things from the Thunderbird 2 pod, and it has the little these sort of little cross brace pieces that go across the top. It even has some of those. So I think pretty much every piece of the girder kit is there on the Mole. The beauty of this stuff is that none of it draws attention to itself. It all just looks like it should be there, and it's because it is, the girder bridge is just a very, generic set of girders. So they could use these pieces sort of at any scale, really, and, they look like exactly what they're meant to be. So then, again, going back to the fact that, weekly episodes, new models every week, adding that level of reality, you see bits of this thing sort of show up in sort of random places, like the road laying machine, that giant machine that's seen in End of the Road, clears the path and then lays down the tarmac and paints the stripes on the road. Beautiful, beautiful effects. And there's bits of the bridge kind of on there, on that sort of like the road laying part, the thing that moves the Empire State Building, and you can see bits of it. Well, lots of the pieces on there, the cross braces, the long sort of runner pieces that form the top and bottom of the trestle bridge. The crab logger, which is one of the later models, has those same square things on it, and I believe it has some of the trestles on the side. The SE rescue planes, when you see them take off from London Airport, you can see bits of the base of the bridge. Thunderbird 4's launch ramp has little pieces. I mean, yeah, they just sort of use this thing, everywhere, because it served its purpose, and God knows how many of these things they bought. They must have been buying them by the ton. And I've actually seen the girder bridge kit used in shows sort of outside of Thunderbirds. I mean, it's in Stingray. If you look in the launch pen in Stingray, you can see some of those sort of triangular end pieces. All the machinery that holds up Marineville is clear when you see it descending into the underground safety area. There's a load of girder bridges there. And then the feature film that Gerry and Gerry Anderson made called Doppelganger, or Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, there's this giant rocket assembly building, and there's some shots sort of inside there where the crew are being shown, their ship for the mission. And it is just basically wallpapered with the Girder bridge. It's a really incredible model. And I've seen the little, the good old square plug things from the pod. You can see them on the side of the transport ship, the London, and there's a ship that sort of takes Blake to the penal colony, and sort of that's got some of these things along the side. One of the Space 1999 ships, super swift. Some of those kind of top and bottom long pieces can be seen sort of along the top of it, and I'm sure there's many more. I'm sure I've seen it in Alien somewhere, and I'm pretty sure I saw it on the Discovery in 2001. But I think that was at the cinema where it was gigantic, and you could see a lot of this stuff. Anyway, it's an interesting little thing. Full credit to the model makers and the design team, and Derek Meddings, of course, under his supervision and striving for this sort of reality. You really don't notice it. It looks completely home. It was a way to get a lot of production value for little cost, and used judiciously and with great skill. It just looks great. And I don't want this video in any way to suggest there's any sort of shortcoming in the work that these guys did. Quite the opposite. They did such a fantastic job with all of this stuff, and it's just kind of fun to see these things. I mean, there's other kits, the FX hovercraft and some of the other train accessories that show up, and maybe I'll do another video on those. But yeah, I mean, the work they did is outstanding, and looked better than a lot of the feature films at the time, and continues to just look outstanding and be inspirational. So thanks for watching. Please leave comments or questions below. See you soon. Bye-bye.